Welcome to the Sports on Tap NEO High School Football Show. Be sure to join the conversation by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Use the hashtag SOTHSF. Here are your hosts, Rob Trump, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy.
Welcome, everyone. It's our Ohio High School football coverage. We're Sports on Tap. Week 1 game recaps. I'm Rob Troutman. We have Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy here live in Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio. Guys, welcome back for another year here in 2018 of high school football.
It's good to be back for sure.
I've been waiting for this for a while. I'm not gonna lie, kind of sneaks up on you.
Mm-hmm. It does.
I mean,
yeah,
it went from being dead of summer to crap, it's week 1.
And it still feels like the dead of summer outside.
Yeah,
no
it does
kidding.
Absolutely.
It's been a while since we've all been in the friendly confines of Studio J.
It has
That's
been a
true.
while.
Yeah.
It has been a while. We've been on the road. We've been
It's Z's?
at Z's.
Yeah.
By the way, anyone at Z's, if you happen to have my laptop charger, I would really appreciate
Just
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
helping that out.
Help a brother out.
When it's having to be listening up there, it'd be fantastic.
Because right now, your computer's barely
It's hanging
has
on.
anything left. But,
No, my computer's not alive right now. It's dead.
Okay, it's done.
Yeah, so my
You see that, Z's? You killed Ed's
my
computer.
lovely spreadsheet that has the all
speaking-
the results
Yeah.
and the standings is not being
Oh, that's
filled
right.
out at the moment.
And I copy Ed's, so we're going to need that power cord stat.
Want to welcome everyone, and thanks for listening. We're Sports on Tap. You can follow us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We archive every show on YouTube, so just type in Sports on Tap, and you can listen to this episode and
As long
interviews.
as our last show that we had the head coaches from Bremen Park, North Ridgeville, and Brunswick, all of whom were not victorious this week. So we may not have any more coaches on our show.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah, you know what? They'll find the win column.
So are we the Sports on Tap version of the Kiss of Death? Is that what we are?
We are the Madden
I hope
cover
not.
of
Yeah,
Madden cover of
we're
high
the
school football.
I like that. The Madden
Madden
cover
cover.
of high school football.
But
Not
it-
something
but-
we should be excited
yeah, I
about.
was gonna say,
But
I don't
if
know,
we
that's good.
if we come to the games, there's teams out there
one team has to win.
Yeah.
but
So you got that
as
going.
you noticed
50-50 shot.
as you noticed over the past couple seasons we've been doing this, going to games. Now you're starting to notice teams that we go cover that particular game of the week. Some teams are starting to win when we're there, so I think we're starting to get kind of a home field advantage with some of those teams.
Oh, so you're saying the home teams are winning?
I don't know. It could
I
be.
mean, yeah, for the most part. But
I'm not giving this a lot of thought. I'm just
Okay,
going with it.
Just making
But
sure I'm
Does
following
anyone know
your
why
logic.
this? Complete side note: does anyone know why the Suburban League National Division scores and not show up on the website?
yeah,
they're on the website.
We
They're
discussed
buried.
that, and I'll show you.
We'll talk about
after.
that during the break.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah, so
Oh,
I
shit.
definitely put them out there using my phones because of my.
I'll show
Once
you.
again, at Z's, my laptop cord is missing, hence I had to do all this on a phone, and it was rough.
I'll show you
Thank
on
you.
the website. But hey, that leads in perfect. If you want to check all these scores, our stories, go to sportsontappodcast.com. We have pictures, video, a great story from Sean from this last week. And you could go to neosportsinsiders.com as well for all the stories in high school football. Great job by them, and we're on there as well. So without further ado, Josh Jeffy.
Back at it,
Back at
GCC.
it in the Greater Cleveland Conference. And, Josh, there are some great matchups. Brunswick and Highland teed off. Menor and St. Ed's.
Mm-hmm.
What a game that was. And I'm interested to hear what you have on that game.
Yeah, and as we just a reminder, as we go through these, we cover specific conferences. So, our updates and our recaps that we're going to give, especially for the GCC, are going to be geared more towards their teams in the GCC. As in the beginning of the season, we have a lot of inter-conference matchups. So we're all going to kind of do the recaps based off our teams that we cover. And, Rob, thanks for that intro. And we're going to get started with the big game in the GCC. It was Menor versus St. Ed's. And Menor came out with a nice 42-39 victory. Menor led this game with their rushing attack. Their quarterback, sophomore Ian Kipp, this is what Mentor's doing now, just throwing out sophomore quarterbacks, and they're going to be around for 3 years. Tadas Tatarunas was there before that.
There's the name.
Mitch Trubisky. So, Ian Kipp is this year's sophomore Mentor quarterback. Not a lot from the offensive end throwing the ball for Kipp. He only had 114 yards passing. He, however, had 174 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. The junior running back, Brian Trobel, 191 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns in this game. Mentor scored the final touchdown with 1:47 seconds left. They actually went for it on 4th down. They were going to go and try to get the first down. They needed 3 yards. They were able to get it, and they actually went right into the end zone, and that secured the 42-39 victory. Next for Mentor, it doesn't get much easier for them. They will travel to Byersfield and take on the St. Ignatius Wildcats.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, Ian Kipp is no joke. I saw him. He filled in. He played I think he played the second half or fourth quarter against Brunswick last year, and then we saw him in the JV game. And that he's legit. I mean, he was a freshman last year, so he going along the same lines as what they do in Mentor. He's tall. He's just going to get better, and he may take some lumps this year, but by the time next year, and even more so when he's a senior. Not that they're not dangerous every year, but they'll have another 3-year starting quarterback who has the potential to take that team to the state championship again.
Yeah, it seemed like St. Ed's, it went back and forth, but Mentor's defense made some big plays, even though they gave up 39 points, getting a few key sacks when they needed it. And that offense, man, running the ball, they got some explosion plays out of there.
Yeah, and
long plays.
As a team, they had 365 total rushing yards.
Give credit to the O-line, too, there.
So, that's obviously was their game plan going into this, was to attack St. Ed's with the run game, and they did that very well. Moving on, the next game, and we talked about this with Berea Mid-Park head coach John Hunick. He was on our show last week. He went into Strongsville. The Titans went into Strongsville, and they were actually up 14 at the half. The Titans were.
Yeah.
And then Strongsville opened up the second half with 27 unanswered points. We talked about Mentor and their rushing attack. Well, Strongsville in this game, their rushing attack totaled 393 total rushing yards. They were led mostly by Taylor Griffin. He had 131 yards. Colin Crotty had 117 yards. And quarterback Johnny Major also added 62 yards of rushing in this game. And Strongsville just basically dominated the second half with that running offense. And we talked last week with John Hunick about the defense, how they had to make improvements, and they started off that game good. However, the second half, they made some crucial mistakes, and they weren't able to really come back from those mistakes. But Strongsville ends up with a 49-35 victory over the Titans in this one. Strongsville will play Hudson in Week 2. Shaker Heights had a nice 20-6 victory over Shaw. Defense pretty much dominated this game, led 14-0 at half. Rasheen Ali for the Red Raiders had all 3 touchdowns for Shaker Heights as they once again went on to a 20-6 victory. They will host Benedictine next week as they look to continue their successful season thus far. Euclid 42-15 over Glenville. Quarterback for Euclid, his first start on the varsity level. Dion Valentine had 3 touchdown passes. All-Ohio defensive back Job Wren had a 79-yard interception return for a touchdown. Michigan State recruit Brandon Wright also added a rushing touchdown for Euclid as they once again went on to a 42-15 victory over the Glenville Tarblooders. Euclid will play Lorraine next week. In a dominating defensive effort, Solon 25-0 over Aurora. Sophomore running back Khalil Eichelberger, 138 yards, 3 touchdowns. Solon had 243 total rushing yards in this game, and that's pretty much all they needed with their defense coming up on top. They only gave up 7 total yards of offense in the first half to Aurora, so that was a pretty dominating performance for them. Solon will play Twinsburg in an interconference matchup next week. Another victory for the GCC in this one, Medina Bees with a 43-20 victory over Cleveland Heights. Medina was up 29-6 at the half. Quarterback Ryan Fisher was very efficient, 11 for 15, 176 yards, 4 touchdowns. Wide receiver Luke Hensley was the recipient of majority of those touchdown passes. He had 4 receptions, 69 yards, and 3 touchdown passes. And running back Delonte Davis, 41 yards, rushing 2 touchdowns. So a pretty nicely efficient game played by the Medina Bees. They were efficient on all ends of the spectrum, offensively, defensively, as well as special teams with some big special teams plays, blocks that they had, and kick returns they had also in this game. Now we move on. Highland with a 28-7 victory over Brunswick. Brunswick was held to only 16 rushing yards in this game. Josh Stocco, who we interviewed last week, one of the captains of the team, a performance he'd like to forget in this one, 7 of 22 for only 83 yards, 2 interceptions. Brunswick punted the ball 10 times in this game, and then they had 29 plays go for negative yards. So not a very good game offensively.
Good defense by Highland there.
Yes, good defense by Highland. Not a very good game efficiently on the offensive end for Brunswick. Now, Ed kind of texted us after the game there. He said Jake Rogers killed us, in which they did. You know, the guy's an awesome special teams player. He had a 75-yard punt return for a touchdown. He had another long return that set up another touchdown for them, and then Brunswick kind of punted away from him, which most teams do after a while. The only Brunswick touchdown was a 94-yard kickoff return by Anthony Stample, thank you, Ed. And that was, once again, Brunswick's only score in this game as they go on to lose 28-7. I forgot to mention the Highland team that we're talking about will play Medina next week, while Brunswick will be hosting Cleveland Heights.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Jake Rogers there.
I didn't know if you wanted to.
No, I mean, Jake Rogers obviously is one of the best players in the county, and if you read in reading the Medina County preview, which is very, very good, I know Albert Grindle does a lot of work on that. He flat out, they pretty much just said if it wasn't for Joey Boffman last year, Jake Rogers would have been the Medina Gazette MVP as a junior. But, Mr. Ohio football will kind of take Trump over that. So, I mean, you obviously don't game plan to get the ball to Jake Rogers. Unfortunately, out of 10 punts, 8 of them went away from him, and 2 of them happened to find his hands, and those are the 2 that he made us pay for. And it can really alter how you play too. I mean, if you look at it, first off, big credit to the Brunswick defense. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they scored on a short drive after a not so positive punt. They also scored on a pick 6. So for the defensive standpoint, Brunswick really only gave up 7 points of offensive. Only gave up 7 offensive points, having not been put in a position that's not conducive to their success.
Right.
So. Obviously we had a little bit of work on the offensive end. Hopefully we don't punt again 10 times, but whenever we go out there to execute on special teams, we have to do it. And whether that's just as simple as kicking the ball away from their best player, kicking it out of bounds, no matter how far it goes. You always have the best intentions. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. So that's and with We have a junior punter. He hasn't punted in a game yet. He is an experienced kicker. He just wasn't able to showcase that as much as he had to do punting. But it's his first game, and I have no doubt that as a team we're going to rebound, and we'll give Cleveland Heights all they can handle.
One of the things that struck me as I was preparing and looking at all the articles that were done, especially the Medina Gazette did a great job of illustrating exactly what the situation was in this game, and it was literally a situation where 21 points were scored in less than a minute.
Yep.
And that's really the tail. Outside of that 30-second or whatever span, it was a pretty lackluster performance on both sides of the ball. I mean, Highland is basically having a brand new offensive line that found themselves under constant attack by the Brunswick defensive line. Now, and that served to basically slow down any attempt, because when they gave Jake Rogers the ball as a running back, he was stifled. He couldn't go anywhere.
Yep.
But on the special teams is where he's made kind of his career in the last couple of years, is being able to make those spectacular plays when he gets an opportunity to. He makes the most of his opportunity. This is a question going forward for a team like Highland, because if you are going to rely on special teams fireworks, for lack of a better word, and you can't run the ball consistently, which is what Coach Gibbons is going to want to do with a guy like Jake Rogers, with an offensive line that's inexperienced against a pretty good defensive line in Brunswick, it's only going to get harder. You're only going to go against Aurora. You're going to have to go against Revere. You're going to have to go against Copley and Barberton, and those guys now see that weakness, and that they have to clean that up going forward, because if you cannot protect the quarterback, you cannot run the ball, your only hope is that Jake Rogers gets someone punts to Jake Rogers. And I think, unfortunately, Brunswick kind of laid out why you don't do that, and how they can coordinate that into a win. And that's unfortunate for Brunswick, but I think that's a big red flag for what Highland has to go through this year, because you got to be able to protect up front, and if you can't move the ball, you're gonna have some problems.
They have some really good offensive minds over there in the Highland side.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no doubt that they'll find ways to put Jake Rogers from an offensive standpoint in the best position possible to get the ball in space and work his way around the field, so they don't become as stagnant as they may have been against Brunswick. So I have no doubt that Coach Gibbons and his staff will take care of that, and I also have no doubt that Coach Pinzoni and the Blue Devils staff will get the Brunswick offense on track as well in the same vein.
Yeah, and again, like Sean mentioned, and Ed mentioned, you have to give credit to the Brunswick defense for
and
basically
Highlands defense for
keeping them in check, and like Pinzoni talked about in our interview last week. He's got a kind of a younger team where when it comes to experience level, he wants to get everyone on the same page of thinking week by week. So basically, I'm sure Pinzoni already told, we're going to forget about that. We're moving on to Cleveland Heights now. Let's game plan for them. And they're going to come up with a game plan. Same thing with Highland.
Yep.
Offensively, they're going to come up with a game plan to go against Medina, and that's going to be another tough matchup for them that we'll see how that goes next week. But to finish out the GCC, thanks, Ed, for that commentary, and Sean. Finish out the GCC, Avon Lake with a 42-15 victory over Elyria. Elyria, for the first time in 90 years, opened up a new stadium, Eli Stadium. The first half, Elyria was basically shooting themselves in the foot. 3 turnovers, 2 punts. It was 28-0 at the half. 2 scores for Elyria on this one. 85-yard touchdown reception from Jameel Nolan to Davion Drummer. And on the special teams end of it, Ty Allgood blocked a punt, and he scooped it up, ran it back for a touchdown, not a TV, for a touchdown. But that was pretty much all for Elyria in this one, as Avon Lake once again went on to a 42-15 victory. Elyria will take on Bedford next week, week 2.
I have a question, and I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yeah.
You said they opened up a brand new stadium for the first time in 90 and
90 years.
That is
yes.
correct.
Have you seen that stadium before?
No, I've never seen it. I didn't realize.
Man,
dude. I never seen it. That's congratulations to Elyria.
Good for Elyria.
Good for Elyria.
They're one of the
classic.
They're one of the few schools in the GCC that still had a grass field, and I have not seen it yet.
Yeah.
I have to think they have turf at this point.
Yeah,
but
they do.
So
I'm just saying, 90 years.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That stadium looked every bit of it.
I mean,
believe me.
It's like what, Wrigley Field and Fenway and Eli Stadium are the oldest stadiums.
Pretty much, man. Pretty much.
Well, and I'll add a little bit because Avon Lake is one of my teams, but like you said, that stadium is classic. Avon Lake right from the get-go. I mean, Connor Riggs and Jack Mahalik, he's the quarterback there. It was those guys that led them to the touchdown. They got it kind of started early. Avon Lake was up 28-0 at half, so they kind of made a statement right from the get-go. And it's unfortunate because you're opening a brand new stadium. You want to come out, but Avon Lake very impressive in their win, and it's a very nice stadium. That's a classic stadium though out there. If you've ever been to Eli Stadium, it looked great. And no better way to open it up than on the opening week. It's just unfortunate that Avon Lake, was pretty dominant in their performance.
Yep. For sure.
All right, Josh, anything else on the GCC? Some great games there. Any surprises to you? I mean, I think we saw, like kind of going off of last year, Euclid was, I thought, pretty impressive last year. I know every year we're always talking about, Shaker Heights gets off to a hot start, and then they kind of trickle down.
Well, last year they finished, with an even 500 record, and they finally got some conference victories. Are they able to, kind of put that together and win some more? Who knows? Probably the biggest surprise is that, that we had was, just the kind of performance that Brunswick had. I was looking for maybe some more things on the offensive end, but you got to give Highland credit. And I thought Elyria would battle a little bit more.
They always have those athletic players that
and especially because you had all the hype about a new stadium opening. But like we all said before, it's week by week. We'll see what happens. But I think the proof is in the pudding that the GCC once again is going to be a very, very tough conference. A lot of the conference is very top heavy with a lot of good teams up top. So it's going to be a dogfight, and be excited to cover it the whole season.
Nice job, Josh Jeffy. There now we'll get into the Southwestern Conference in Week 1, where Avon played on Thursday. They played Akron Buchtel. And the first half of this game belonged to Avon, who scored 6 points with 30 seconds left in the first quarter. It was Ryan Malloy to Nick Perasek. As it was 8 yards out, they scored the touchdown. Then they would score again in the second quarter on a 36-yard score. And at half, it was 19-2. Avon had a pretty good-sized lead, but in the second half, they turned the ball over twice in the red zone and were held scoreless the whole entire second half as Buchtel climbed back to 19-11 at one point, but a defensive play by Mark Steinmetz, who also plays offense for the Eagles, held off a comeback by Buchtel as Avon holds on for their first win of the season, 19-11. Ryan Malloy, the quarterback for Avon, he was 9 of 19 with 107 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, while Parasek's 2 touchdown catches were his only receptions of the night. And the junior did add 91 yards on 19 carries. They play a big conference game against Olmsted Falls coming up this Friday. I'm surprised, though, that Avon was held to no points in that second half, but give credit to Akron Buchtel. They clamped down on defense and were able to get back in it, but Avon does improve to 1-0 on the season, and it seems like that's what they're known for, is just holding on and closing out games. All right, moving to Midview versus Lorraine. And this Midview started off quick in this game. It was 7-0 when Andrew Gooch hit Isaiah Johnson for a 5-yard touchdown pass. But on the ensuing drive, Lorraine tied the game with Jordan Jackson connecting on a 9-yard pass to Cario Edwards before rushing for a 21-yard touchdown. Then Dalen Dower gave Lorraine the lead, going 85 yards for a touchdown. Dower did rush the game 10 times for 195 yards and a pair of touchdowns before he sat in the second half. And, yes, this game got a little bit out of control as Lorraine had the lead 21-7 before Midview. Did cut it to 21-14 with an Andrew Gooch 8-yard touchdown pass to Edwin Raylat. And that's as close as the Middies would get as Lorraine stops the Middies' 6-game win streak in this matchup. Lorraine wins big 44-14 over the Middies. And up next, they'll travel to North Ridgeville for a matchup against the Rangers. So a little bit surprising in that matchup with Midview. That game, it started off last year where Lorraine jumped out to a big lead. Midview did come back. Yeah. Not this time. Lorraine was just dominant from the get-go there.
Yeah, they once again got off to a fast start, but I was a little surprised by this one. Lorraine coming out strong. They're going to be a strong team this year.
Lorraine's pretty solid. I mean, since they've consolidated from Admiral King and Southview into one school, I think the momentum's just been building, and they have a lot of really good athletes in Lorraine, and they have a coach that can bring it all together, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Lake Erie League, and then probably more importantly in Division I Region 2.
Yeah, Dave McFarland, I believe, is the coach at Lorraine, and he's been doing just an absolute great job out there. They have a lot of athletic kids, and they have a great game plan. So a nice win for Lorraine. Congratulations to them beating the Middies 44-14. Now, Josh went over Avon Lake at Elyria, and like we went over, the first time in 90 years for Elyria to open a new stadium. But, the Pioneers they had 3 turnovers at one point, 2 straight block punts. We talk about special teams and how it's such an important part of the game. It's surprising we talk about it in some of these games because usually it's offense or defense. You don't talk special teams, but the 3 turnovers and the 2 straight block punt, they actually led to 28-0 lead for the Shoremen at half, and that was kind of the important part of the game as Avon Lake won big 44-15 over the Pioneers. So up next, Avon Lake will host North Olmsted, and North Olmsted's, we're getting into them. They also have a new stadium that they're opening. Josh also covered Berea Mid-Park at Strongsville, so we don't have to get too much into that, but we'll give Trevor Baczynski some credit. He had 306 yards and a pair of scores in the game. Wide receiver Garrett Wade had 82 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. And our 2 guys we interviewed last week had nice games. Gage Young and Ryan Rivera, who were on our show, 1 interception apiece for them. So defensively,
Nice.
They got a little involved, but what a turn of events in that second half for them. Unfortunately, Strongsville with a 49-35 win against Berea Mid-Park. Berea Mid-Park will host Westlake, and Strongsville, they'll host Hudson. Amherst versus Clairview. Amherst fumbled and turned the ball over deep in their own territory early on in the game, but the defense had a huge stop that led to a running back and cornerback, Kennedy Scagliazzo, with an interception. Amherst, they were led by senior quarterback Jimmy Schill, who threw 3 touchdown passes, and running back Kennedy Scagliazzo, who rushed for 164 yards and a pair of scores. I feel like he's been in school 10 years. Every year I'm announcing his name. Clairview, Amherst routs Clairview 33-0 in this game, and Amherst, just continues to be impressive as they were last year. They continue that. They'll host Lakewood next week. Boom. East Lake North against Westlake, and these guys always seem to put up some numbers. East Lake North, they had a huge game last year against Westlake. This one was a little bit closer as both teams brought their offense in this one, as the Demons had a 14-7 lead at one point in the second quarter before East Lake North rattled off 28 straight points and led at half 35-21. The third quarter began with a North 35-yard field goal, but a 7-yard touchdown pass from Westlake's quarterback Jacob May to Kevin Walls and a 45-yard rushing touchdown from J.J. Coleman cut the deficit to 38-35 with 11:41 left in the fourth quarter. But East Lake North, they were able to hold off the Demons by winning 52-43. And, give credit to Westlake. They didn't give up in this game and still fall a little bit short, but quarterback Jacob May, he finished with 19 of 25 passing for 234 and 5 touchdowns, a player of the week candidate. And running back J.J. Coleman, he led the Demons rushers with 14 carries for 124 yards and a score. And Jacob Jablonski, 6 catches for 105 yards. Westlake travels to Berea Mid-Park. East Lake North, they'll host Revere next week. North Ridgeville, they traveled to North Royalton, and I know this is one of Ed's teams. And North Royalton, I'll tell you what, they're looking very impressive as down 21-3 in the final minute of the first half. Quarterback Matt Steinmetz of North Ridgeville led the Rangers on a 76-yard scoring drive. He capped it with a 17-yard touchdown run, and it briefly cut North Royalton's lead to 21-10. But Ed knows this guy, Joe Marisic, the quarterback for North Royalton. What an impressive performance he had in this game.
Yeah, Joey Marisic is he's everything. He's he's the main hub of what they have going on in for the North Royalton offense. Just a junior quarterback. He's a big part of it last year. We got to see how well he did. He had a good game against Hudson last year when we saw him play, and he was able to settle things down, and he put Simon Antonio and Riley Nurek in good positions. They each had 2 touchdowns rushing for the Bears. So it wasn't all Marisic there. He had some help from the ground game for sure, but the defense was able to stifle the Rangers' offense, and North Royalton moves to 1-0. This was an old Pioneer Conference matchup from back in the late 90s and early 2000s
right.
there when North Ridgeville briefly joined our conference that we all played in. And we talked about the game. We talked about this game coming up with Coach Durbin before the season, and Obviously when you think of North Royalton, you're thinking about Marisek, and sometimes you know what's coming, but you might not be able to stop it. And against a team like North Royalton, you need to be able to score some points. And North Royalton came up a little bit short.
Well, Marisek threw he counted for 5 touchdowns, and all were on pretty long passes too, 32, 60, and 34 yards in the first 3 drives. So when we talked to Coach Durbin, he mentioned that trying to stop Marisek and a lot of these guys is not easy. You can game plan for them, like you said, but they still got it done. They just beat the defense of the Rangers.
One of the things that happens in those type of games is, like you mentioned, 3 straight scoring drives, things that, happen. The points just kind of build upon themselves, and you find yourself in a hole, and then your offensive playbook maybe shrinks a little bit because you have to respond because you realize maybe your defense is getting gashed or you're getting, in this case, beaten over the top, so you have to kind of try and match score for score. And I think that's what happened here is North Royalton jumped out early and was able to sustain that momentum all throughout the game, whereas North Ridgeville kind of got behind the 8 ball early and could not respond, or maybe responded too late, so to speak. And that's the unfortunate thing about these week 1 matchups is sometimes the talent wins out. Sometimes, your game plan just kind of goes out the window that you've been kind of preparing for all training camp, and then you're on, panic mode or crisis mode at that point, whatever you call it, as coaches. Like, hey, we gotta start scoring some points here. You can't. No longer can we do 3 yards in a cloud of dust anymore. We gotta air it out because these guys on the other side are airing it out and they're being successful with it. So,
well, and a lot of times North Ridgeville likes to run the ball.
Yep.
And when you get down big, it's tough to run the ball and be successful. So quarterback Matt Steinmetz, he finished with 235 yards passing and an interception to go with 77 yards. Running back Cade Riley finished with 47 yards on the Rangers' opening drive, but finished with 98 yards on the ground. In North Ridgeville, they'll host Midview. As North Royalton, they will host Parma.
North Ridgeville, Midview, that's actually kind of a big early season matchup. First conference game, but both teams going into this game 0-1.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's kind of a big one.
It's not normal having one or both of those teams being 0-1 in week 2. Usually one of those is coming off a win, so it's going to be interesting to see how both those teams respond after, 2 big losses that maybe the fan base wasn't expecting.
Yeah, now we'll move to Lakewood versus Garfield Heights. And Garfield Heights, they jumped out to a 35-0 halftime lead, and they didn't look back in this game, beating Lakewood 42-0. And give Garfield Heights credit. The defense just impressive, and obviously the offense clicking on all cylinders is Lakewood. They'll travel to Amherst this coming up week, so it doesn't get easier, especially when you start getting into the Southwestern Conference.
No, we scrimmaged Garfield Heights as one of the scrimmages, and we saw just how good Garfield Heights can be. And a lot of people in the area are saying this may be one of Garfield Heights' best defensive teams that they've seen. They've always been able to score some points, and but stopping teams has been a little bit of an issue for them. But from what I saw against us, and obviously what they did, throwing a 42-0 shutout of Lakewood, they got some they got some players on that team. So we'll see how they'll be able to hold that together in their independent schedule going forward. I know I'll be seeing them a little bit next. I'll be seeing them next week as part of my recap.
And one of the things if as you mentioned, it doesn't get easier for a team like Lakewood because they're going to get a very healthy dose of Kennedy Scagliazzo out of Amherst. It's clear how that particular team is, how they score, and that's through that really talented running back who's now, I believe, as we found out on Friday, is now playing from an actual true running back position. I don't think he's no longer taking the snaps anymore, so he's now able to focus as a true running back, which I think is his natural position.
Yep.
And that's got to, make some teams wonder, because if they could figure out how to get open up some holes for him, he can make a lot of teams pay. So good luck to Lakewood and taking on Amherst next week. Hopefully they can bounce back from a very, 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 very difficult loss.
Well, they're going to have to.
They're going to have to.
It's a long season, so hopefully
that's true.
Hopefully they can bounce back pretty quick. But we'll move to North Olmsted, where they open a new stadium in style as they build a 28-7 lead against Valley Forge. And then they were able to hold on for a 28-20 win in the season opener for both these schools. Valley Forge, they opened actually with a 7-0 lead before North Olmsted senior quarterback Liam Fay would run in from 8 yards to tie the game, thanks to a bot snapped on a punt from the Patriots. So more special teams play. The defense, they did get the ball back to the Eagles, who, again, would score with quarterback Liam Fay on a 30-yard run. It was 14-7 North Olmsted. They weren't done getting a score from a running back and linebacker, and also a Bowling Green commit, Darren Anders, who put him up 21-7. Congratulations to him as he committed this year. He's a very talented kid, so we'll see where he's going to play. Pretty much does it all for the North Olmsted Eagles. So
Ziggy Zumba.
That's right. Love the pick. North Olmsted, they get a big win at their new stadium, holding off the Patriots 28-20. Liam Fay, the quarterback for North Olmsted, had 3 touchdowns. It was Darren Anders, 1 touchdown on the day, 70 yards rushing. He also had some tackles in there. North Olmsted has a huge game as they travel to Avon Lake. And, going through the SWC, my player of the week is quarterback Jacob May of Westlake, as he went 19 of 25 for 234 and 5 touchdowns. Congratulations to him. Just an outstanding performance. And, they got down a little bit but didn't give up, got close. And, I think he was a big part of that. So congratulations to Jacob May of Westlake. And the SWC is not done. We have a game of the week, but we'll do that later in the show. And want to thank a sponsor for our game of the week there is Westlake Interior Painting. We'll give them another shout on NEO Sports Insiders as they sponsor our game of the week for this last week, which was Brecksville at Olmsted Falls.
The Bees.
There it is.
And to round out our opening segment of Week 1 high school football coverage, the GCC Player of the Week will go to Menor running back Brian Trobel, 191 yards, 4 touchdowns as the Cardinals. He helped lead the Cardinals to a 42-39 victory over the St. Edward Eagles.
Very nice. Well, right now what we're going to do is we'll step away, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little suburban football with the American and National divisions. Sean Duffy and Ed Dick will give you everything you need to know for our Week 1 recap. Remember to follow us at SOT Podcast. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Go to our YouTube page for archived updates where you can listen to all of our audio podcasts. And that way, if you have questions, sportsontap.podcast@gmail.com. sportsontap.podcast.com. All right, we'll be right back after this. We're Sports on Tap.
Are you a business? Want to be featured on Sports on Tap? Get in front of different age groups in the local community. Contact us at sportsontappodcast@gmail.com for more information. RRT Productions, specializing in creating sports recruiting videos for all high school athletes. Want to play at the next level? Promote your talents with a video to send colleges. Affordable, experienced, and a high-quality video. Make us your local video production company. Visit our website, rrt-productions.com, and contact us today. RRT Productions, we shoot, we edit, you win.
No matter the season, it's always the right time for Z's Cream of Bean. Whether you want to warm up with some of their delicious soups, chilies, or coffees, or sample from their delicious selection of ice cream, shakes, and other cool treats, Z's Cream of Bean has you covered. Visit them at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley, Ohio, and tell them the guys at Sports on Tap sent you.
For the best coverage of Cavs, Indians, and Browns, check out NEOSportsInsiders.com. NEOSportsInsiders.com brings you breaking news, opinions, and video from all things related to your favorite Cleveland sports teams. Like us on Facebook and follow at NEOSportsInsiders on Twitter for live updates from all the games. NEOSportsInsiders.com, bringing you the best in Northeast Ohio sports coverage.
Listen to our shows live on Mixer or join us the first Monday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley. Want to listen to past shows? Go to our YouTube page or website, www.sportsontappodcast.com.
SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the place to go where you can listen to past shows, read featured articles, check out all of our social media updates, plus much, much more. SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the official website of Sports on Tap.
For up-to-the-minute info on local high school sports action, including photos, videos, and live updates, be sure to follow Sports on Tap on Twitter, Instagram, and like us on Facebook.
And welcome back to Sports on Tap. It's our Week 1 game recaps for the Greater Cleveland Conference, the Southwestern Conference, and the Suburban League. I'm Rob Trauman. We have Josh, Jeffy, Edick, Sean Duffy here live in Studio J. And you can catch some of our posts at SOT Podcast on Twitter. Go to sportsontappodcast.com SOT.com, where we post our stories, videos.
Just some of our posts?
A
select few?
Yeah, select few.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
It's user error usually when that doesn't go up.
Yeah, exactly.
Normally it's me, too.
Go to our YouTube page where we archive all of our podcasts, interviews, and things of that nature. Also, we're on Instagram and Facebook. NEOSportsInsiders.com as well for other games from other conferences. But right now, let's go over to Ed Dick, who's covering the National Division for the Suburban League. And, Ed, I'm sure you have some fun games that you want to go over.
Well, we will pick right up off. We'll pick up where we left off with defending Suburban League National Division champion Wadsworth. They absolutely steamrolled Akron Firestone 63-0 at Arkwright Stadium there in Wadsworth. Beautiful stadium, as Josh and I got to experience last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was an awesome place to watch the game for sure.
Junior quarterback Trey Schaefer filling the void left by 2017 Ohio's Mr. Football Joey Boffman, currently a freshman at Elon University.
Nice.
Schaefer completed 11 of 13 passes for 124 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 2-point conversion. For the Grizzlies, 8 different players scored touchdowns for Wadsworth. Wide receiver Carson Risher caught TD passes of 17 and 18 yards, and then there were pick sixes by linebacker Jack Rice covering 26 yards, and defensive back Robbie Lynn covering 34 yards. You can tell that the defense was really on point against Firestone this week. Wadsworth starts the year 1-0. They will travel to similarly 1-0 Worcester in week 2. Firestone, they dropped to 0-1. They will travel to 0-1 Copley. Conversely, Cuyahoga Falls, they were looking for their first win since week 1 of the 2016 season, hosting fellow American League Division rival Kent Roosevelt, which was the last team that Cuyahoga Falls defeated. For the Tigers, for the Black Tigers, Eric Roziak did score a first half touchdown to give Falls a 7-3 lead at the half against Roosevelt. And then as Duffy can help out, Roosevelt scored 20 unanswered points.
Yep, that's pretty much how it went. As Ed said, the Black Tigers took a 7-3 lead into the half, and the Rough Riders were able to ride a 20-point second half to victory for first-year head coach Mark Geis. In this, the Roosevelt's defense did pitch a shutout in the second half, and the final score was, Ed?
23-7 in favor of Kent Roosevelt. With the loss, falls to 0-1. They will travel to 0-1 Norton. Kent Roosevelt, as Sean may reiterate in the next segment, they are 1-0. They will travel to 0-1 Marlington out of Alliance, where my beloved Purple Raiders reside. As we talked a little earlier, North Worldton did host North Ridgeville in an old Pioneer Conference matchup. Joey Marisek had a game, as we have come to expect. San Antonio Riley Newark East rushed for touchdowns for the Bears, and North Worldton with a 42-25 victory moves to 1-0. They will host 1-0 Parma next week at Serpentini Stadium in week 2. And as Rob talked about earlier, North Ridgeville, they're going to jump right into conference play in the Southwestern Conference, hosting 0-1 Grafton Midview. Macedonia Nordonia, they travel to Bedford to take on the Bearcats, a 2017 playoff qualifier. The Knights come away with an 18-12 win. Nordonia quarterback Robbie Levick ran for a 7-yard touchdown, and kicker Evan Weahy connected on a 43-yard field goal to account for the first 10 points. And then Julius Jones scored the game-winning touchdown on an 85-yard interception return for a touchdown. Jones did finish with 2 picks for the Knights. Nordonia improves to 1-0. They will travel to Peninsula to take on 0-1 Woodridge. Bedford is 0-1. They will host 0-1 Elyria. Another cross-division matchup here between the Suburban League American and National Division. The Twinsburg Tigers started their season hosting the Copley Indians. And the two teams played a 21-21 stalemate at the half.
Yep.
And then
had everything gone to plan for Copley, it would have been fine. But unfortunately, there's 2 halves in a football game, and Twinsburg was able to dominate the second half of this game and ended up taking Copley to task.
Yes, the final score 49-28 in favor of the Twinsburg Tigers. They they really put the boots to the Indians in the second half and come away with the victory. Twinsburg is 1-0. They will travel to 1-0 Solon in week 2. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, and Duffy may reiterate, you can never talk about where these games are going to be at enough. Copley will host 0-1 Akron Firestone. And then on Thursday night, the first night of college football, the first night of high school football, Stowe Munroe Falls visited Mentor to take on the Lake Catholic Cougars. The Cougars did jump to a quick 10-0 lead before Bulldogs junior quarterback Josh Andrazi connected with senior wide receiver Brian Cartwright for a 7-yard touchdown to cut the lead to 3. However, Stowe could not get anything going over the course of the rest of the game. Lake Catholic scores 21 unanswered points, cruising to a 31-7 win. Stowe falls to 0-1. They will travel to a neutral site to take on 1-0 Hilliard Bradley. Lake Catholic will travel to Cleveland to take on the 0-1 Cleveland Central Catholic Ironmen. And then last and certainly not least, at least as far as the games that I will be talking about specifically, Hudson hosted Austintown Fitch in their season opener. The Explorers got on the board first with a 37-yard field goal by kicker Jake Vidmar, taking over for 4-year starter Grant Gagne. After a Fitch score, quarterback Liam Brennan found Brendan Demuniak for a 5-yard touchdown and a 9-7 lead. However, the vaunted Explorers defense, which we have come to see over the last couple of years in covering these teams, they cannot keep the Falcons off the board. Austintown scores 10 unanswered points, going on to a 20-9 victory over the Hudson Explorers. Quarterback Liam Brennan completed 13 of 29 passing for 163 yards and a touchdown. Brady Ludwig, we saw him run a little bit in the North Royalton game last year that we covered. He rushed 33 times for 186 yards. Hudson drops to 0-1. They will travel to Pat Contan Stadium in Strongsville to take on the 1-0 Mustangs. Austintown Fitch is 1-0. They will host 0-1 Erie out of Pennsylvania. And then Brecksville and Olmsted Falls.
The Bees.
Of course.
Boom.
They were the SOT game of the week. We will talk about that in a little bit in the next segment. The player of the week for me is going to go to Macedonia Nordonia defensive back Julius Jones. 2 interceptions, one of which was a game-deciding 85-yard pick six in their victory over the Bedford Bearcats. So big props to Mr. Jones there for helping his team out, and he is the Suburban League National Division Player of the Week. Now we will kick it over to my cohort, my colleague, my compadre, fellow Suburban League coverage, friend of mine from the American Division, Sean Duffy.
Wow, it's been a while since
I know.
heard that.
Since
It was
the
nice
confidant,
to hear that again.
I mean, he called you a friend too. I mean,
I know.
it doesn't get nicer than that.
So nice.
It gets real when he says
Yeah.
cohort.
Yeah. Well, guys, before I start my recap here, I need to shout out one of our big fans. My son Liam just sent me a text that said, "Good luck, Dad, on your podcast."
Nice.
As he's listening
see,
in
that's
his
the good
bath.
stuff right there.
So, Liam, listen to your mother and go to bed. I love you, and we'll see you in a little bit.
That was really nice of you.
Yeah, see, he's a fan. Well, we got
Right.
one. We got one. And it's only because I'm his dad. But, we'll take what we
That's
can get.
right. That's right.
We're not picky.
Going to touch briefly.
Exactly.
Going to touch briefly on some of the games here that in the American Division. As Josh mentioned, Solon went into Aurora and pretty much was not a very good guess because they won 25-0. Not to say that Aurora didn't have an opportunity to get into this game. They were on the Solon 1-yard line twice in this game, and late in the second half, but were stopped on downs both times and unable to convert any points in that contest. Aurora falls to 0-1, and they will look to rebound as they take on CVCA at home in Week 2. Moving on, one of our 2 overtime games in the American Division, guys. 2. I got 2 of them. Norton and Barberton. Norton held a 14-0 lead into the fourth quarter, while Barberton was able to score 2 touchdowns to force an overtime. Norton scored first in the overtime, but missed a crucial extra point, which proved to be the difference as Barberton immediately responded and was able to convert the extra point, making the score 21-20 in favor of Barberton. Barberton improves to 1-0 and will host Cuyahoga Falls in Week 2. Copley and Twinsburg, as Ed mentioned, was a pretty neck-and-neck affair going into halftime, but unfortunately Twinsburg turned it on in the second half. They ended up winning 49-28 over Copley. Copley falls to 0-1. They will host Firestone in Week 2. As we discussed in depth, Highland was able to pull off a 28-7 victory over Brunswick, thanks in large part to the help of Jake Rogers. 74-yard punt return for a touchdown. He also had a punt return that set up a touchdown. Highland defense was able to stifle the Blue Devil offensive attack and scored a touchdown of their own, a 29-yard interception by Brady Linder, which returned for a touchdown. Highland moves to 1-0. They travel to take on Medina in Week 2. Guys, Highland's looking to take the Medina sweep here. If they can knock off Medina and Brunswick, I think they win the county, right? Is that how that works? I don't know.
I don't know. They still have a big matchup against Wadsworth as well. So, I mean, if they want to take Medina County, they have to really take out Wadsworth too.
Did they play?
I don't think they play.
No,
Wadsworth.
I didn't mean that, but
I'm saying,
theoretically,
play the schedule in front of them. Josh, come on now. And guys, just to move on to the next one here, guys, just to let you guys know, I'm doing the Buckeye review.
Thanks, Sean.
Guys, Rob, Josh, doing the Buckeye review.
All right, I'll ask if you do it later, though.
Okay, thank you. But as mentioned,
step up.
The Buckeye Bucks traveled in to take on Revere, and Revere, they got some revenge on Buckeye. Revere was able to completely dominate the visiting Buckeye Bucks. Minutemen running back Matt Busser finished with 122 yards on 11 carries, two rushing touchdowns, and a passing reception touchdown.
That's a good day.
Revere quarterback Nathan Klonowski went
Indeed.
11 for 19, 219 yards, and 4 touchdown passes. Buckeye kept shooting themselves in the foot with penalties and miscues that stalled out drives. Their only touchdown of the night was scored by Buckeyes Armando Nye, and if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I apologize. They were able to get into the end zone. Unfortunately, they missed an extra point, and Buckeye falls to 0-1 after a 43-6 routing by Revere at Revere. Revere goes to, Buckeye falls to 0-1. They will host Rocky River in Week 2, whereas Revere improves to 1-0 and gets some much-needed revenge after a loss last year. They will take on Eastlake North in Week 2. As we mentioned before, Roosevelt was able to hold off Cuyahoga Falls 23-7. First win for new head coach Mark Geis. And Roosevelt is 1-0. They will travel to take on Marlington in Week 2. Guys, my second overtime game involved Talmadge and Ravenna. Talmadge was able to overcome a 2-touchdown lead to force an overtime, and this was thanks in large part to senior quarterback Sam Seeker, who had 2 rushing touchdowns in the second half. However, Ravenna, for some reason, and unbeknownst to even the coach himself, switched to the Wildcat offense once the overtime period commenced, and was able to score as the overtime opened. Talmadge did have an opportunity. They drove it all the way down and had an opportunity to score, but an incomplete pass to a wide open receiver in the end zone stifled any hopes of a comeback victory. Talmadge falls to 0-1. They will look to rebound against Ellett in Week 2. Again, they lost 27-21 in overtime to Ravenna. My Week 1 player of the week goes to Revere quarterback Nathan Klonowski, 11 for 19, 219 yards, 4 touchdowns. It really was between him and running back Matt Busser, but he had more touchdowns, and, that's the way it goes. Sometimes the quarterback gets the glory. Guys, that's all I got. Sometimes or all the time. That's all I got from the Suburban League American Division.
Well, we want to thank Dave Ray, who gives us stats on Brunswick and Buckeye.
Mm-hmm.
He emailed us a lot of great stats for both those games, so I want to thank him for coming up huge, and he's done that for years, so I want to thank him for sending those stats in. And if you're out there and you're in charge of stats at a high school and want us to talk about the game, send your stats our way, and we'll be glad to read them on the air.
And I think we usually save this for the last segment, but I think he's listening because he made a point to ask me about it. So my brother-in-law, head coach of the Fayetteville Rockets, Kevin Finch, I found out about this on Facebook from my sister-in-law. Apparently they did some damage last week. They defeated the Manchester Greyhounds by a score of 46-0.
Wow.
They really put a hurting on them. I don't think seeing as that we're in Cleveland and he's down in Cincinnati, I think I'm okay in talking about this. Coach Finch can tell me otherwise if he's listening. But he was telling me before their numbers as far as participants on their team are not very high. And, he's a little worried about about how things are going in the season. of course, I see the score 46-0. I think he's sandbagging me now. So I don't really know what to believe from him anymore. So,
well, even if that is the case, maybe the participation levels are low. Victories like that will only help him possibly improve those later on.
Hopefully. So
I'm sure they got to iron out the kinks too. I mean, 46-0. They didn't do everything.
Well, I mean,
perfect.
I would assume that 46-0 in a small turnout means everybody at least got the chance to score a touchdown. I think everybody runs the ball
probably.
at that
Yeah,
point. I mean,
that wouldn't surprise me. But
Very cool.
Want to know Fayetteville they will travel to Jefferson Township to take on the 0-1 Jefferson Township Broncos down in Dayton, Montgomery County. I think Sean would be a little more familiar with that than most of us.
I am familiar with them. And speaking of Montgomery County, my beloved, my alma mater, the Vandalia Butler Aviators. They had a tough week on Friday, losing 42-19 to Harrison. It was not great, and probably not something that they're going to talk about. Much like Coach Pinzoni, they're out of the Harrison Wildcats are out of Hamilton County, out of Cincinnati. Much like Coach Pinzoni, we're going to address it. We're going to look at the film. We're going to move on because you're not going to learn anything from a 42-19 victory or loss.
Well, maybe those 19 points were very positive, and
we can only hope, guys. We can only hope. But I'm always going to be a proud alumnus of Vandalia Butler and that school system. So congratulations on a new season. Let's turn around, guys. What do you say?
It's a long season.
Let's give me something to brag about.
9 games left.
So, guys, actually, I want to point that out. None of our alma maters got a week 1 victory.
No, it was not a good week for our alma maters.
Granted, 3 of you all went to the same school,
say,
but
that's all right.
I had to think about that for a minute.
It's boom or bust with this crew. Boom or bust.
We can never split the week, can we?
That's right. Guys, any last thoughts on the Suburban League? And is that what you expected to go through the Suburban League? Highland's always impressive, but you look at Wadsworth. I mean, coming off of last year's playoff loss was tough, but man, they put that aside, and they're just overall they're impressive. They had a few down years, and I think they're kind of right back on that track.
I think so too. Coach Todd has a really good program going on out there. And what's not mentioned in the story is that the senior running back Brock Snowball really didn't play at all in this game. So they were able to put up 63 points without the services of Brock Snowball, and I think they were just after the first couple of plays he had tweaked something, and I think once the ball got rolling on the offensive end, it was all right. Let's save him for the Worcester game next week, and we'll see what kind of impact he can have on the game. As a stalwart of the past couple of years, so Wadsworth is I think Wadsworth still is the team to beat in the Suburban League National Division until someone steps up and beats them. I think a team like North Royalton does have some playoff aspirations. They do have a very good quarterback in Joey Marisick. We'll talk a little bit more about another Joey quarterback in the next segment that plays for Brushville Broadview Heights. Twinsburg had a really really good start. They bring back Trey Radford, who's been a really good skill player for them for the last couple of years, and Stone Monroe Falls. I'm not sure. Josh Andresi is a brother of Joe Andresi, one of the receivers from the state semifinal team from a couple of years ago. I'm not sure talent level wise how they're looking. They did play a very tough Lake Catholic team, so I think once they get in the conference play, things might normalize for them. And then Hudson's always tough. You can't go. I mean, Austin Town Fitch is always a good program. They usually get 6 or 7 wins a year. So losing to Austin Town Fitch is no shame. I want to see what they will be able to do next week against Strongsville, though, and that very, very explosive offense that the Mustangs have.
Couple of things surprised me as I looked at over these scores and looked at the recaps of the American Division was, obviously the big one to me was Aurora not being able to put up any points against a Solon team. It's one thing to lose to Solon, but not to get blown out to Solon, and to have opportunities to punch it into the end zone on the 1 yard line and not being able to convert. That's got to be alarming for the Aurora fan base. The other thing that I'm looking forward to and want to see this develop over the year is Revere. Revere played a very, very good game against a Buckeye team that's a tough team for anybody to play. Buckeye may have lost some and maybe cost themselves a game by penalties and miscues and things like that. But, these types of performances that Revere has, I really do think with the way this division is kind of starting out, we may see a change of guard here. We may see a team like an Aurora and a Barberton and a Copley, those top 3 teams in Highland, kind of maybe take a step back this year. We may see some surprising teams like a Revere, a Talmadge was in the mix last year. Kent Roosevelt's on the winning side of things. Now, again, they have to get into conference play and things like that. But if this trend is truly a trend, we could see a very different animal that is the American division in this Suburban League, and it would be refreshing to see that. Now, do I think it's going to happen? I think Aurora is a good team, but I think Solon may just be a lot better than Solon may be somebody we're talking about in the GCC going forward as probably a contender for the championship. So that may be an outlier. Obviously, they get a CVCA team next week. They can maybe right the ship and then continue momentum. Highland, I think, is the biggest question mark. I really do. I think, as I mentioned earlier, that offensive line is inexperienced. Not to say they're not talented, but they're inexperienced. They lost a lot. And, any coach will tell you, if you can't protect, you can't win the line of scrimmage, you're not going to go very far. Defensively, I think they're set up. They can keep themselves in games, but you got to be able to score points. And that's going to be the question mark I have. And I think it's going to be I actually do think it's going to be an entertaining year to follow the Suburban League, both national and American divisions.
It always is, that's for sure. It's going to be a lot of fun this year. When we come back, we're going to talk about our game of the week, which found Brecksville and Olmsted Falls clashing, the Suburban League National against the Southwestern Conference. We'll go over all the details of that one when we come back. We're Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network.
Are you a business? Want to be featured on Sports on Tap? Get in front of different age groups in the local community. Contact us at sportsontappodcast@gmail.com for more information. RRT Productions, specializing in creating sports recruiting videos for all high school athletes. Want to play at the next level? Promote your talents with a video to send colleges. Affordable, experienced, and a high-quality video. Make us your local video production company. Visit our website, rrt-productions.com, and contact us today. RRT Productions, we shoot, we edit, you win.
No matter the season, it's always the right time for Z's Cream of Bean. Whether you want to warm up with some of their delicious soups, chilies, or coffees, or sample from their delicious selection of ice cream, shakes, and other cool treats, Z's Cream of Bean has you covered. Visit them at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley, Ohio, and tell them the guys at Sports on Tap sent you.
For the best coverage of Cavs, Indians, and Browns, check out NEOSportsInsiders.com. NEOSportsInsiders.com brings you breaking news, opinions, and video from all things related to your favorite Cleveland sports teams. Like us on Facebook and follow at NEO Sports Insiders on Twitter for live updates from all the games. NEOSportsInsiders.com, bringing you the best in Northeast Ohio sports coverage.
Listen to our shows live on Mixer or join us the first Monday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley. Want to listen to past shows? Go to our YouTube page or website, www.sportsontappodcast.com.
SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the place to go where you can listen to past shows, read featured articles, check out all of our social media updates, plus much, much more. SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the official website of Sports on Tap.
For up-to-the-minute info on local high school sports action, including photos, videos, and live updates, be sure to follow Sports on Tap on Twitter, Instagram, and like us on Facebook.
And welcome back to our Ohio High School football coverage, Week 1 game recaps for Sports on Tap. I'm Rob Trump. We have Josh Sheffy, Ed Dick, Sean Duffy live from Studio J. If you go to our website, sportsontappodcast.com, great stories. We do all the game standings and scores, video pictures from some of these games that we cover with our game of the week. NEO Sports Insiders gives you all kinds of different games from all different conferences. Go to our Twitter page at SOT Podcast if you want some great high school information there. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and we archive all of our podcasts on Twitter, or actually archive on YouTube, not Twitter. But let's now get into our game of the week from this last week, which we covered Brecksville Broadview Heights as they traveled to Olmsted Falls. And
Who are they, Sean?
The Bees.
yeah, they. I'll tell you what. One thing I noticed before we even get into this game is the quarterback situation for both these teams. Joe Labus of Brecksville, he throws a really impressive ball. A lot different than last year. You could tell the kid has a lot more confidence this season. When he gets the protection, I mean, he's going to be a really good quarterback, not only this year but next year. And for Olmsted Falls, Teddy Grenzinski, we usually see Olmsted Falls run the ball a lot and run it and run it and run it, and he aired it out a little bit in this one, and he's a pretty accurate passer, and I think they added a little bit new of a dimension for Olmsted Falls football. It's going to run, obviously. That's what their bread and butter is, but they can open it up. They have some very quick receivers that can make some things happen. So it was a fun game, obviously, going to Olmsted Falls. They have the natural grass that you don't see too often anymore, but very nice stadium, and it was great to talk to a lot of people there. But to start the game off, Brecksville had the ball, and they had to punt on the opening drive, and that's when the Bulldogs, they would strike first as senior quarterback Teddy Gredzinski scored on a 20-yard touchdown run. It was the Bulldogs that led 7-0 early on in the first quarter. But the Olmsted Falls defense, they forced a fumble on the very next Brecksville play from scrimmage, and they took it deep into the bees.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
I know.
Rob. It's
Well,
just
I didn't
that's
know
Sean's
that. I
thing.
mean,
It's
it
my
wasn't that-
thing.
it wasn't
I don't
that
understand
bad,
why
to be
you're doing
No,
that.
it wasn't that
wasn't
I didn't
bad.
know
bad,
if he
but
was
it
ready.
is.
But-
I'm sorry. I was reading my own. reading
I
my
looked
own
at
writing.
him, and we didn't make eye contact, so I thought I'd do
Yeah,
it
for
that
all
way.
Bruxville stories, Sean has to be at the ready, just either the look or the point or something like that.
I gave him the look, but he was, doing whatever. Over there.
Sorry, my bad. Next time I'll catch it. I was trying to find the story that I wrote.
That's all right.
It's
It's on sportsontappodcast.com.
Oh,
check it out for all your for our game
all
of the
your
week
sports
coverage.
needs. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Nice job, Sean.
But Grinzinski then, after Brecksville fumbled, he would find senior wide receiver Braden Galaska for a 24-yard touchdown, and right away the Bulldogs led 14-0 halfway through the first quarter. So they were making a statement pretty early. But Brecksville, they didn't give up. I mean, obviously it was early in the game. They finally were able to get some rhythm offensively, and they put together a great drive, 67-yard drive that was capped off with a 6-yard touchdown run from junior running back Christian Mitchell. And at the end of the first quarter, the Bulldogs led 14-7.
Yeah, one of the things that several of the things that caught me about the first quarter was Olmsted Falls defense. They were swarming. I mean, those first two series, they were getting to the quarterback. They were making Joe Labas really work to even complete simple pitches. In fact, they forced a fumble that was more so on the fault of Brecksville than more so than Olmsted Falls. It was just a missed handoff, something like that, and then they jumped right on. They were able to capitalize. So it was very impressive to see how Olmsted Falls was able to game plan and scheme for it. But that third drive in the first quarter, Brecksville found something in that offense. I think they were able to run a little bit towards the middle. They were able to kind of run north-south versus trying to maybe get out on the edge. There's a little bit too much speed from Olmsted Falls on the edge. They were able to kind of get north-south, and that's where they found a lot of success, gashing him 20, 15-yard runs, and then pounding it in with Christian Mitchell into that touchdown. So that was definitely one of the several things that I found in the first quarter to be interesting was, one, that Joe Labas was really having to work to find open receivers, but also there was a few times, even in those first two drives, where he had some wide open receivers, and he threw a very nice ball, and unfortunately his receivers did not do him any favors for most of the night. That was a big theme for Brecksville, is they had an opportunity to really keep pace with Olmsted Falls, but
They actually, and on one, actually, it would have, if you would, I think it was Ronald Wilson who he did catch a touchdown pass in this game, but
could have had two more.
He split the two defenders down the middle of the seam, wide open,
beautiful ball
and
thrown.
I think he just took his eyes off it at the end, and it dropped, and that could have been that actually was somewhat of a turning point in this game. I felt like because that would have, I think, tied the game up, and instead it was a tale of
I think
two stories there.
That particular pass you're referring to, Rob, he was more concerned about staying in bounds because it was more towards the corner of the end zone.
No, this one was in the middle of the field, and he just dropped it.
Okay.
He split the defenders.
I thought you were talking about the one in the end zone because he was right on the edge there, and I think he was more concerned about keeping his feet in bounds versus,
Yeah. But then, after the first quarter, it was 14-7 Bulldogs. And Brecksville's defense, they were actually able to stop the Bulldog offense on a 4th and 1, and we know Coach DeLuca isn't afraid to go for it on 4th down.
He was not.
To open the second quarter. And the Bees stopped them on 4th and 1, and they gave the Bees great field position. However, the Bulldog defense, Braden Galaska, this guy was everywhere. Not only catching touchdown passes, he made some plays on defense. In Olmsted Falls, they did utilize a 27-yard pass and catch from Godzinski to senior wide receiver Dylan Rines that set up a 1-yard touchdown run by senior running back Jack Spellacy. It was Olmsted Falls that led 21-7 early in the second quarter. But the Bees, that's the thing. This game was far from over as they responded with a scoring drive of 75 yards. It was sophomore running back Garrett Kubitz as he would score on a 1-yard touchdown run. And Olmsted Falls still led 21-14, this with 4:59 left in the first half there. Brecksville, their defense was able to force a fumble on the next Bulldog drive offensively, and Brecksville sophomore quarterback Joe Labas connected with junior wide receiver Ronald Wilson for a 25-yard touchdown pass and catch. And the game was tied at 21 with 1:21 left in the half. And you can kind of see the tides turning a little bit as, Brecksville got down, but they weren't out. And that's one thing that was fun in this first half was It seemed like Olmsted Falls was trying to pull away some big defensive plays. And one thing about Joe Labus is his confidence is a difference maker, making some really great throws.
Again, as I mentioned, in that one good drive they had in the first quarter, they found something towards the middle of that defense, and they were able to exploit it, and they were able to really kind of take advantage of some good running plays to set up a couple of pass plays over the middle. And again, when Joe Labus has time and his receivers catch the ball, they're a dangerous team to play. And they showed that. They were down 2 touchdowns, early in this game, and showed great resiliency and to bring it back and tie the game up just before halftime. Now, what happens, and Rob's going to get into what happens after this, is going to be a very interesting and very poignant thing that we have here, because the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs had a bit of a Bill Belichick type situation where they did not receive the opening kickoff, so they were going to try their best to score before the halftime, so they get the ball twice. And Rob, take it away.
Yeah, it was Olmsted Falls. They got a really good kick return, went 49 yards down the field. And this is right before half. It was a 2-yard touchdown run by Jack Spelsey again, his second of the night. And right before half, it was 28-21 Olmsted Falls at half. And, that was a huge score right before half there.
It seemed like any time that they're within 5 yards of the goal line, Olmsted Falls has a tendency, and I hope I'm not breaking any rules here by telling you tendencies, but it's really, hey, Jack Spelsey, come here and just run as hard as you can into the guard, in between the guard and the center, and see if you make a touchdown. And more times than not, he finds himself in the end zone because he's very hard to tackle.
Well, in open space, we saw him too.
Yeah, he was good. Good open space, but I'm saying he really does have a great instinct for that. It reminds me a lot of that when Mike Allstott played for the Pan. Obviously, maybe not that caliber, but that type of play calling, like, hey, where's our hammerhead? Come here. See the space between the guard and the center? See if you can fit your entire body through there, no matter what the space is, and do it. And that's exactly what they did.
Well, he's a guy in open space. He's a fullback, on the sheet. But, man, this guy runs with really good speed and strength. So he was able to give them a 28-21 lead at half. But in the third quarter, in the second half, Olmsted Falls really on both sides of the ball. They dominated, made some changes defensively, and really gave Brecksville some problems. And it was the Bulldogs. They would have 2 drives of 80 yards to tack on 2 more touchdowns, each ran by quarterback Teddy Grinzinski, giving him 3 touchdowns on the night. And defensively for the Bulldogs, they just did a great job of wrapping up.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the backfield, a lot of negative plays. As you mentioned in your story, limiting yards after contact, which were huge, because you see that a lot of time, bouncing off tackles and getting out in the open. And Olmsted Falls, they, after going into the fourth quarter, it's 41-21.
Yeah, and after the game, we caught up with defensive coordinator Rob Pace, just kind of talking about the game, and he mentioned that there was one key adjustment they made in between first half and second half, and that was moving their defensive tackle from heads up over the guard to heads up over the center, and really having the center, really having that defensive tackle kind of create havoc in that area where Brecksville was having success getting the ball. They were having success, running the ball and creating a little bit of momentum, forward momentum. What happened after halftime was that they moved their defensive tackle over the center and he played heads up over the center, and that defensive tackle was able to get in and cause and get penetration, which interrupted flow of the running back handoff. So he was basically in the backfield a lot, tackling and causing all kinds of chaos, and that caused those negative plays and limiting yards after contact. So then when they tried to go outside, Olmsted Falls' speed was able to catch up to, was able to kind of play a bigger factor in forcing Labus to go to air it out vertically.
And the defense was pretty solid for Olmsted Falls, but they continued to score. And this time it was Grinzinski found senior running back Michael Howard for a 3-yard touchdown pass, and at one point early in the fourth, it was 48-21 Olmsted Falls as they just continued, to score here. But the Bees, they did respond with a scoring drive of 80 yards, and it was capped off with a 3-yard touchdown run again from Christian Mitchell. It was his second of the night. The Bulldogs held a 48-28 lead with 7 minutes left in the game. But Olmsted Falls, it seemed like they always responded with a touchdown for themselves there. 63-yard scoring drive, and it was junior Alec Wall with a 1-yard touchdown run. The Olmsted Falls Bulldogs, they get the win on Sports on Tap's Game of the Week in Week 1, 55-28. They beat the Brecksville Broadview Heights Bees.
The Bees of Brecksville.
You know, one of the things in reading the story that, it is one of the things. It will literally be one thing, Josh, is the youth of Brecksville Broadview Heights skill players on offense.
Yep.
You know, you have sophomore quarterback Joe Labas, who is taking over for all world quarterback Luke Sternad from 2 years ago, where he was basically another coach on the field. And unfortunately, I got to see that firsthand when he came back from 14 points down to beat Brunswick in 2016. But Labas as a freshman came in, had a very veteran receiving core left over, led by Sam Wigloos, and he has since graduated. Labas now steps up more as a sophomore, and further to your point, you got some young guys up there. Some plays that could be made, they weren't made, and
not yet.
Not yet. So I think it's a good game for them to build on. They played a playoff tested opponent who did take out Mr. Ohio football last year in the playoffs. So this is no slouch of a team by any stretch of imagination in Olmsted Falls, and I think this may be a learning year for Brecksville Broadview Heights. They may not make the playoffs. I think there's some other teams that are ahead of them right now, but give this team another year when some of these sophomores and juniors develop even more. And I think we'll see a lot of good things from Brecksville Broadview Heights. If not later this year, definitely next year.
Yeah, I mean, they did a lot of good things right. They did a lot of good things in that game. They were able to find a way to move the ball when they got down early. They were resilient. They showed a lot of good things. The problem was, and one of the big problems was is that Olmsted Falls and Coach DeLuca there has a program that literally doesn't rebuild, they reload. They have the same they run the same plays, same type of offense. The players have played in that offense pretty much their entire lives if they've been with that program. So they understand coming in. So even if they're a little bit inexperienced, the system kind of protects them a little bit. Not to say that Brecksville doesn't, but Brecksville may be relying more on talented players to make plays, and when they don't, that's when you see the mistakes and things like that. I agree with you, Ed. I think Brecksville may be a year away. I wouldn't be shocked if they turned it all around and surprised me, but I would expect it more late this year, next year, making some, hitting some strides. And when you see, Labas as a junior, maybe this Wilson kid as a senior, the offensive line kind of work together and gel as a unit. They're young too. So, you want to see that. Olmsted Falls looks very, very difficult, and it looks like a very good team in the Southwestern Conference.
Well, and the Bees, they fall to 0-1, and they look to rebound against Garfield Heights as they will host Garfield Heights this coming week. But like you said, I think there's a lot of skilled talent. Ronald Wilson, he's a quick wide receiver that can make plays. Yeah. He drops some passes, but he's very talented.
But he's open.
And he can get open. So that's going to be impressive to see how he can build on throughout the season. Olmsted Falls, they were led by senior quarterback Teddy Grinzinski, who's the player of this game. 5 total touchdowns, 3 rushing, 2 passing. So when you look at Olmsted Falls, they like to run the football, but I thought when I looked at them in Game 1, they aired it out a little more than I'm used to seeing Olmsted Falls football. They have a lot of playmakers. Glasgow was one that we saw, and a few other wide receivers there that I think Olmsted Falls could surprise some people with their passing game a little bit this year.
Well, I also think that Olmsted Falls did a really good job of taking what was there that Brecksville gave them. Brecksville knew that they were going to run Spellacy and they were going to run Michael Howard and they were going to run Gridzinski. So they were almost saying, look, beat us with your arm. And the problem is Gridzinski's no slouch in the arm department either.
Yeah, he throws a really
He
good
can throw
ball.
a really good ball. Galaska's a good wide receiver. The wide receiver / tight end Reigns or
Yeah.
He's a tall kid. He's a good target in the red zone. I mean, they have the offense to do it all. It's just the way that offense is set up. It's run first, and they're a team that's not afraid to run it 30, 40 times a game. But if you're going to stop that, or if you're going to put 9, 10 in the box, they can make you pay over the top, and that's unfortunate for a lot of teams that got to play Olmsted Falls. Now, we're talking, and Rob, your conference is that you cover is a meat grinder, and for Olmsted Falls, it does not start any more meat grinderish than who they got to play next week, and that's Avon. And that's a team, that's a matchup that's going to set the tone for both those teams and probably the conference as a whole as to who's going to be the big dog. No pun intended, Olmsted Falls or Avon, but who's going to be the lead dog in that pack. And I'm going to be interested to follow that game next week.
Yeah, so Olmsted Falls will play Avon, and great job by Olmsted Falls. I mean, in the second half, it was definitely a different turn of events, especially defensively. So they changed some things on defense, and were able to stop a very talented Brecksville offense.
And great time out there, too.
And we'll see what happens here in this game. I mean, this will be the third time in less than a year that Olmsted Falls and Avon have played each other. They saw each other twice last year, once in the regular season, of course, in conference play, and then the Division II Region 6 finals, another victory by Avon there. So we'll see if Olmsted Falls can get over the hump that is the Avon Eagles.
And it's tough because they got to go on the road to do it.
Yep. It's going to be a meat grinder in that game. It's going to be fun to watch the score. Is it going to be offensive or is it going to be a low-scoring game? We'll wait and see. But now our game of the week, and actually want to thank Westlake Interior Painting for sponsoring that game between Brecksville and Olmsted Falls on NEO Sports Insider's website. All of the sponsors that sponsor these games, have an interest in high school sports, so I want to thank them for that.
For all your interior paint needs, make sure you think Westlake Interior Paint.
Wow, look at this guy. I mean, a live read. That's perfect. Nice job, Sean Duffy. I mean,
ding!
This is why we hired him for Sports on Tap right there. That was his
I'm
tryout.
supposed to get paid?
Well, no.
Okay.
But
the one thing we hired him for.
You watch. You know what you just did? That's a new article coming out every Thursday.
The one thing.
The one thing.
And actually, this coming up next week, we have another game of the week that's going to send us out to Berea Mid-Park High School. They'll face the Westlake Demons. And Josh is actually going to be somewhere else, as a matter of fact.
I'll actually be at the Brunswick game. I'll be live tweeting from Sports on Tap's Twitter page, updates on the Brunswick game. Big thing, I got twin girls, started kindergarten, so they're having a kindergarten night at the football game, so I figured I'd take them there. And
wait, Brunswick letting kindergartners play varsity football?
Well,
guys, it's not that bad. Jokes, levity, levity, guys.
The one good thing about it's only one of the nights.
It's my only one, and it's the end. It's the end.
Uh-oh.
You're better off just...
Wait, we might want to hurry up and end this show because I think tables are going to be flipped here shortly.
What you talking about, brother?
So,
But, we will, I'm interested to see in Berea Mid-Park, Trevor Baczynski. It's going to be a good quarterback battle there.
Yep.
For Westlake, Jacob May, he finished with 5 touchdowns on the night. Trevor Baczynski at Berea Mid-Park, he's a Rice commit, likes to pass. We know Berea Mid-Park's offense is high-powered. So is Westlake. We saw that last year. So it's going to be a fun game. Whose defense can make some stops in this game? That's going to be the game.
And in Brunswick, I'm looking forward to seeing what adjustments they make, especially on the offensive end to kind of get
special teams too.
Well, you
could change some things on special teams.
Well, that was kind
there
of
are different formations, isn't there?
It was an in the moment type thing.
The team that you're playing is the big change.
A great special teamer. But this game, I want to see specifically how they do on the offensive end because they need to get that end of the that portion of the team going if they want to make some kind of headway in the conference this year.
I would also point out that their defensive line is very impressive to watch. Based on all accounts that I've read, is that Brunswick's defensive line is
see if they can continue
pretty good
to build on that.
Defensive ends. I can't think of the names offhand, but defensive ends are pretty good. I'm excited because we get to go back to Baldwin Wallace College and watch the game from Finney Stadium.
Yep.
Sure is.
Is that a question? That sounded like a question.
I always
Finney?
It's either Finney or I always call it Finney or Finnick Stadium. So I
Finney.
Finney is in almost Feeny, like from Boy Meets World, but not really.
Oh man!
So Finney Stadium, we will be there in our black shirts and black hats and very black.
That's right. And you know what? We stand out, and everybody notices. That's for sure.
They do.
It was great in Olmsted Falls. A lot of positive feedback and comments from parents and players and coaches. So we look forward to it. Our first week of our game recaps are in the books. Guys, great job as always.
They can only get better.
as
Or
well.
worse, really. I mean,
Well,
you never know.
That's
Good
true.
luck. Good luck to all the Greater Cleveland Conference teams, Southwestern Conference teams,
Yep.
and the Suburban League American and National Division teams, and our friends from Buckeye,
Yep.
Vandalia,
Yep.
Butler, and Fayetteville down in Dayton.
Nice job.
And if you're a high school team that wants to make sure we get your stats right, go ahead, reach out.
Or
to
names right,
Or
too.
names right. God for yes, please give us correct pronunciations of the names. Sports on Tap Podcast at gmail.com. Also follow us on our website and Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat.
Oh.
Are we on Snapchat? We're not Snapchat.
No, not
Instagram.
yet.
Sorry.
No.
That's it.
But
That's
we're
all I
all
got.
over the place.
Rob,
So.
take us out.
I want to thank everyone for listening. We're Sports on Tap. We'll see you next Monday night, or actually not next Monday night at 7:30. We'll have to update that on our Facebook and website on time since Labor Day is next week. All right, we're Sports on Tap. I want to thank everyone for listening. For Ed Dick, Sean Uffy, Josh Jeffy, I'm Rob Troutman. Have a great week, everyone. Good luck this coming week. See ya.